In the dead of night, a lone patrol car cruises a quiet stretch of highway, its headlights cutting through the darkness. A truck comes into view, its taillights flickering faintly as it moves steadily down the road. The officer takes a second glance. Something feels off. What started as a routine traffic stop quickly takes a turn. The driver's hands tremble slightly as he hands over his license. His voice cracks, his answers short and guarded. What could he be hiding? Why the nervous glances? And why does a simple tarp in the back of the truck suddenly seem like it's hiding more than just cargo? As the officer steps closer, a decision must be made. Beneath the quiet surface of this night lies a discovery that will leave everyone speechless. But what's inside the truck? And why was it being transported under the cover of darkness? Stay tuned to uncover the truth, a truth no one saw coming. As this story unfolds, we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? And have you ever witnessed something that didn't seem right? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're ready to dive deeper into stories like this, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Your support helps us uncover and share stories that matter. The highway stretched endlessly under the cover of darkness, its stillness interrupted only by the occasional hum of passing vehicles. A patrol car moved steadily along the deserted road, its headlights slicing through the night. Inside, Trooper Daniel Carter sat alert, his years of experience teaching him that even the quietest nights could hold surprises. Up ahead, a truck came into view. It wasn't speeding, nor did it appear out of place, but something about it caught Carter's attention. His instincts, honed over countless hours on the road, urged him to take a closer look. Without hesitation, he activated his patrol lights, signaling the vehicle to pull over. The truck slowed, its brake lights glowing faintly before it came to a stop on the gravel shoulder. Carter stepped out of his vehicle, his flashlight cutting through the darkness as he approached the driver's window. Behind the wheel sat a man who identified himself as James Lewis. His grip on the steering wheel seemed firm, his expression calm, but Carter's trained eye caught the subtle stiffness in his posture. Lewis handed over his license and registration without issue, his movements deliberate, as though each action was carefully thought out. Carter glanced over the truck briefly, noting the worn tarp stretched across the back. It appeared to be hastily arranged, covering something that wasn't immediately visible. He asked Lewis a few routine questions, where he was coming from, where he was headed. The answers were polite but short, leaving little room for elaboration. As Carter stepped back to his patrol car, his mind lingered on the details, the slight unease in Lewis's demeanor, the hastily covered cargo in the back, and the subtle sense that something about this stop wasn't quite right. The night was still, but the situation was far from ordinary. Officer Carter trusted his instincts, and they were telling him there was more to this truck than met the eye. But for now, he would wait and watch, letting the details reveal themselves in time. "Mr. Lewis," he began, maintaining his composed demeanor, "do you mind telling me again where you're headed tonight?" James Lewis adjusted his grip on the steering wheel and cleared his throat. "Just making a delivery up north," he replied. His voice was steady, but there was a slight edge to it now, a hint of tension that Carter didn't miss. Officer Carter nodded, pretending to jot something down. "And where exactly are you coming from?" There was a brief hesitation, just a second too long. Downstate," Lewis said, his words slower this time as if he were carefully choosing each one. Officer Carter glanced up, locking eyes with Lewis for a moment. The hesitation was small but telling. People often hesitated when they were trying to keep their stories straight. Carter decided to press further. "What's in the back?" he asked casually, motioning with his pen toward the covered cargo area. Lewis stiffened slightly, his knuckles tightening on the wheel. "Just some equipment," he replied quickly. "Tools and stuff for work." The tarp in the back remained untouched, its edges secured as though deliberately concealing whatever was beneath it. Carter's flashlight lingered on it for a moment, his mind racing through the possibilities. But it wasn't just Lewis's responses that caught Carter's attention. It was the faint sound he'd heard earlier, the one that hadn't been explained. And now, as he stood closer to the truck, he thought he heard it again, a soft, muffled noise, almost imperceptible, coming from the back of the vehicle. Officer Carter's eyes shifted back to Lewis. "Mind stepping out of the truck for a moment?" he asked, his tone polite but firm. Lewis hesitated, his fingers gripping the wheel tighter for a fraction of a second before he released it. Sure," he said, opening the door and stepping out. As Lewis stood by the truck, Carter glanced inside again. The interior was clean, almost too clean, with no personal items visible. It was unusual for someone making a long trip. His attention shifted to the back once more. "Wait here," Officer Carter instructed, stepping toward the rear of the vehicle. The tarp, which had seemed ordinary from a distance, now appeared to be carefully arranged. The officer crouched slightly, angling his flashlight to get a better view, but the material obscured whatever was underneath. "This story is far from over, but now we want to hear from you. What would you do if you were in Officer Carter's shoes? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story has you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you're the first to know when we share new content. Your engagement helps us continue to bring you stories that make an impact." Lewis, now standing a few feet away, shifted nervously, his hands in his pockets. "Is there a problem, officer?" he asked, his voice a little tighter now. Officer Carter turned to face him, maintaining his calm demeanor. "Not yet, Mr. Lewis. I'd just like to take a closer look at what you're carrying back here. Would you mind?" For a moment, Lewis didn't respond. His eyes darted toward the road, then back to Carter. I don't think that's necessary. It's just tools. Nothing illegal, I swear." Officer Carter studied him carefully. The refusal wasn't aggressive, but it wasn't cooperative either. Combined with the muffled sound and Lewis's inconsistent answers, Carter's suspicion deepened. This was no ordinary stop. It was time to take the next step. "Mr. Lewis," Carter said, his tone firm but professional, "I'm going to need to inspect the cargo in the back." The air felt heavier now, the tension between the two men unspoken but undeniable. Carter reached for his radio, preparing to call for backup if needed, as he moved toward the back of the truck. Whatever was under that tarp, he was about to find out. "Mr. Lewis," Carter said calmly, his eyes fixed on the covered area, "I'm going to need you to step a little further back while I inspect this." James Lewis hesitated, his weight shifting from one foot to the other. "I told you, it's just equipment. There's nothing illegal back there," he said, his voice wavering slightly. Officer Carter nodded but didn't respond. He was already reaching for the edge of the tarp, his fingers gripping the frayed material as he carefully pulled it back. The beam of his flashlight moved across the exposed surface, illuminating the contents underneath. At first glance, it appeared to be just a few old toolboxes and bags, but something seemed out of place. The officer adjusted his angle, crouching lower to inspect the items more closely. One of the bags was zipped tightly shut, bulging in a way that suggested it held something other than tools. Carter reached out, unzipping it slowly. Inside, he found rolls of cash, neatly stacked and bound with rubber bands, an unusual amount for someone on a routine trip. But it wasn't just the money. As Carter continued his search, he noticed papers scattered beneath the bag, ledgers filled with names, dates, and cryptic notes. His pulse quickened as he scanned the documents, piecing together their implications. These weren't ordinary business records. They detailed transactions, movements, and something far more concerning, patterns of human trafficking. Then he heard it again, a faint noise, barely audible, coming from deeper within the truck. Carter turned his attention to the farthest corner of the cargo area, where another tarp was draped over something large. He moved carefully, peeling back the layers until he uncovered a hidden compartment. The compartment's lid was secured with a latch, but it showed signs of recent use. Carter's flashlight trembled slightly as he opened it. Inside, he found her, Lydia Rhodes, a young woman barely 19, curled up in the cramped space. Her eyes widened as the light hit her. Fear etched deeply into her expression. Officer Carter quickly stepped back, his heart pounding. "It's okay," he said softly, lowering his flashlight slightly to avoid blinding her. "You're safe now." Lydia didn't respond at first, her body tense and her breathing shallow. Carter immediately radioed for backup, his voice firm and steady as he relayed the situation. "Dispatch, I need immediate assistance. Possible trafficking victim located, suspect detained." James Lewis, who had been standing a few feet away, tried to interject. I don't know anything about that," he stammered, his hands raised defensively. "She's not supposed to be here. I was just—" Carter cut him off. "Turn around and place your hands behind your back." He kept his tone calm but authoritative, ensuring Lewis understood there was no room for negotiation. As Lewis was handcuffed and placed into the back of the patrol car, Carter returned to Lydia, speaking gently to reassure her. He offered her a blanket from his vehicle and kept her engaged with simple, calming words while waiting for backup to arrive. Within minutes, additional officers and medical personnel were on the scene. Lydia was escorted carefully out of the truck, her safety now the top priority. Meanwhile, the evidence collected from the truck, the cash, ledgers, and the compartment itself, painted a clear picture of what had been happening. Officer Carter watched as Lydia was taken to safety, his mind racing with the implications of the night's events. What had begun as a routine traffic stop had uncovered a network of exploitation, and though the immediate danger had passed, Carter knew this was just the beginning of a much larger investigation. As the scene unfolded on the side of the highway, the implications of what Officer Carter had discovered went far beyond a single vehicle or a lone suspect. Human trafficking is a crime that operates in the shadows, yet its reach extends across cities, states, and even nations. It's a hidden epidemic, one that preys on the vulnerable and exploits them in ways that are both horrifying and difficult to comprehend. In recent years, collaboration between law enforcement, advocacy groups, and local communities has played a vital role in combating trafficking. Initiatives like task forces and public awareness campaigns aim to not only rescue victims, but also dismantle the networks that perpetuate these crimes. Cases like the one Trooper Carter uncovered serve as a powerful reminder of the importance of these efforts and the impact a single stop can have in saving lives. For every Lydia Rhodes rescued, there are countless others who remain trapped, their stories untold. It is the vigilance of officers like Trooper Carter and the growing awareness of communities that provide a glimmer of hope in an otherwise dark reality. Human trafficking is not just a crime, it's a crisis that demands attention, action, and unwavering determination to put an end to the suffering it causes. Human trafficking victims often endure unimaginable hardships. Many are subjected to physical abuse, starvation, and neglect, leaving them malnourished and physically weakened. Lydia's appearance reflected this reality. Her fragile frame and tired eyes told a story of weeks, perhaps months, of suffering. These physical effects, while devastating, are often just the surface of the trauma. Survivors also grapple with feelings of shame and guilt, often blaming themselves for their situation. It takes time and compassionate care to help them understand that they are not at fault. The healing process is multifaceted, requiring a combination of medical attention, psychological counseling, and social support. For Lydia, her rescue was just the beginning. While she now had a chance to reclaim her freedom, the journey to healing would be long and arduous. Yet, with the right support systems in place, survivors like her can move toward a future of hope and resilience. The arrest of James Lewis sent a clear message. Human trafficking carries severe legal consequences. Lewis faced charges of human trafficking, unlawful confinement, and endangering the welfare of another individual. If convicted, these charges could lead to decades in prison, ensuring he could no longer harm others. However, the prosecution of traffickers like Lewis is only one part of the fight against trafficking. Law enforcement agencies work tirelessly to dismantle the networks and organizations that enable these crimes. This includes tracking financial transactions, identifying key players, and collaborating across state and international borders to intercept traffickers at every level. Community involvement is another critical piece of the puzzle. Public awareness campaigns, like those led by advocacy organizations, aim to educate people about the warning signs of trafficking. Posters in airports, rest stops, and public transportation hubs often list indicators and hotline numbers, empowering individuals to report suspicious activity. But the role of the community goes deeper than awareness. Neighbors, co-workers, and everyday citizens are often the first line of defense against trafficking. Recognizing when someone appears isolated, controlled, or afraid to speak freely can save lives. Reporting concerns, no matter how small they may seem, can lead to the intervention and rescue of a victim. In Lydia's case, the vigilance of Officer Carter played a pivotal role. His attention to detail, combined with his training and experience, ensured that she was rescued and Lewis was brought to justice. But for every case like this, there are countless others that remain hidden. It is the responsibility of all of us, law enforcement, lawmakers, and ordinary citizens, to bring these stories to light and put an end to this pervasive crime. Human trafficking thrives in silence and secrecy. By staying informed, remaining vigilant, and supporting survivors, we can create a world where stories like Lydia's are no longer possible. Now that you've seen the shocking truth behind this story, we want to know your thoughts. What can we as a community do to raise awareness and fight against human trafficking? Share your ideas and opinions in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell so you never miss a story that matters. Together, we can make a difference.